6 a.m. I cracked my gate and found a fat envelope tucked under the private property sign summons to court claims that I'd threatened surveyors with a weapon in some so-called shared access zone, that I'd obstructed Phase 3 integration for a community I don't even live in. I stood there with grease on my hands and that slow burn in my chest and thought, all right, if they want a story, I'll tell it from the start. I'm Mason Carter, out in Pine Ridge County, Oklahoma. A patchwork of old timber and new tech solar panels riding the barn roof, a well that hums like a loyal engine, a chicken sensor that texts me when eggs drop 2 dogs, Scout and Whiskey, who take their job more serious than any security guard I've ever met. Mornings are my quiet church coffee, a welding torch kissing a rattly hinge. No noise but wind through the oaks along the east fence until the drones started coming. Tiny plastic skeeters, blinking red, hovering low. Like they owned the air, then the cars with dark plates idling just outside the easement, then the fake birdwatchers with GPS apps who never looked up at a single wing. One afternoon, the intercom buzzed. Camera feed showed a woman in a cream blazer with a bob that could split hairs. Big sunglasses. Leather folio tucked like paperwork meant power. Hi, Mr. Carter. Linda Ashford, president of Silver Ridge. HOA, I'd love to chat about a tremendous opportunity. Her smile was polished, her tone softer than a church blanket. She starts painting this picture. Wellness center eco spa, golf that glows green in the rendering sun. And I'm the final puzzle piece if I just let them integrate my land equity buyout. Passive income, no more chores. You know what I mean, the paradise brochure talk. I told her straight. This land already is the opportunity. Linda, I'm not selling, not integrating, not rebranding my father's fence line. The smile stayed, but the eyes cooled. If you won't collaborate, we can pursue another process. Then pursue it, I said. Hit the gate. Watched her. Lexus roll out slow, and I knew we were past neighborly. A few mornings later, 3 guys in HOA vests climbed my north fence. Didn't press the keypad. Didn't call. Just hands-on wire, like it was a jogging trail. One carried a tablet. One was linebacker. Big one, looked like he got sunburned by his laptop screen. Whiskey rumbled. Scout bristled. I told them they had 60 seconds to explain what authority they were standing on. A tablet. Guy flipped me a map, all greens and parcels and tidy labels. My field sliced into clubhouse wellness. Lodge's equestrian zen, and the creek I grew up fishing. Suddenly renamed Ashford Creek. We're performing an infrastructure survey for integration, he said. Linebacker added something about preliminary approval from planning. I asked for a court order, a survey license, a single signature with power behind it. Nothing, just throat clearing. So I thumbed the alarm deep iron. Rolling out like thunderdogs. Sprinted, linebacker panicked and lost a shoe, going backward over the fence. Tablet guy dropped his holy document in the dust. The pale one slipped in mud and wore it home. I didn't laugh, not then. I stood with my empty shotgun slung where they could see it, unloaded, and they didn't know, and told them to leave. Deputy Tom Briggs pulled up local steady. I handed him the tablet they'd dropped and a fresh copy of my deed. He shook his head at the fence acrobats. They're lucky you didn't shoot first. Cows know better than to hop a fence they don't own, I said. And that was that, or so I hoped. Then came the envelope, the lawsuit, the language dressed in civic perfume. Obstruction Shared Access Regional Initiative, like if you name a thing. Fancy enough, it becomes true. I called Nora Vasquez, a lawyer who collects paper, like a beekeeper, gathers honey. No waste, all purpose. Email me everything. Mason, she said, deed, satellite photos, gate logs, fence permits, every receipt that touches dirt or wire. We'll build a wall of paper 2 days later. A flyer lands in my mailbox. Town Hall on rural integration and regional harmony. Yeah, that happened. I went because I don't like being the ghost in somebody else's story. Room full of pastel polos and earnest nods. Linda with a mic and a clicker. We face an unprecedented opportunity. The rendering behind her shows my land glowing like it's already theirs. I raised my hand, kept my voice level. Quick clarifications, Linda. My land is private. Your HOA has no jurisdiction. Your men climbed my fence without any order or license. Why didn't you go to a judge first? She tried to steer away. This is a discussion, not a courtroom. And I said good, because in a courtroom, I'd charge you with attempted land fraud. Then I held my phone up and snapped a photo of that slide stamped Q4 implementation across my pasture. You should have heard the quiet. A man in the back asked if I was under HOA rules. Linda cut him off. Moved to the next slide. Lots of arrows. Lots of growth. That night, I posted the photo in the town Facebook group with one line. They're rewriting the map and calling it Wellness by Morning. I had more messages than a birthday. Ranchers, veterans, a school bus driver. All of them saying, don't let them steamroll you. And that's when the story stopped being a headache and became a fight. Remember the tablet? The one that tried to run away, my neighbor kid Eli cracked it in 20 minutes flat. You gotta see this. He said inside were the good and ugly parts of the plan. Membership buy-in. At 75 grand, 15 a year. To keep your yoga water cold. A construction timeline laid over my fence line. Internal notes reading acquisition path underway. Owner, unaware of municipal adjustment process, yeah. I felt my jaw set at that one. Eli dug deeper and pulled a newsletter from New Mexico. Different HOA. Linda resigned after fraud scandal. A bad song played twice. I sent it all to Nora. She wrote back 2 words, I'm on. Then I shipped the package to a local blogger, Tyler Brooks, who enjoys dragging slick language into daylight. He posted a 3-parter. Fake maps, private club in community clothing. Linda's history. And the internet did what it does. When the receipts are thick, too. HOA board members resigned. Linda's email blast said misunderstood intentions, strategic miscommunications, coordinated misinformation. I replied with sunset drone footage of my land, and the caption, this isn't a canvas, and went back to work. Court came like harvest slow, until it wasn't. The room smelled like old paper and aftershave. Linda sat between 2 lawyers. One corporate, polished. One fresh. And hopeful Nora didn't bring theatrics. Just a binder big enough to bench press and a stare that says no to nonsense. The HOA lawyer got up and talked about the collective dream. The better future, my armed aggression as a threat to harmony. Then Nora stood and called it what it was. Theft wrapped in wellness. She laid out deed drone video. The confidential deck with the $75K buy-in side-by-sides of Linda, pitching the same plan in 2 states with the same words. The judge, Calhoun, leaned forward like a coach watching film and asked quietly, do you have any executed authority to absorb this land? A council resolution? A signed transfer? An order? Their shuffle said no without saying no, and he issued a temporary order that kept the HOA from touching or publishing my land as theirs. Linda tried a live stream that night, turned off comments when someone asked why the judge said the land wasn't theirs if the slide said Q4 and the dam was cracking. A week later, Nora called while I was under a seed spreader with a wrench. "Sit down," she said. The court dismissed their claims with prejudice, granted our counterclaims for trespass, defamation, unlawful interference, and sanctioned the HOA. I asked how much. She said $620,000 fees, and punitive included with their discretionary funds, frozen to secure it. I'm not gonna lie, I sat on a hay bale and let my heartbeat climb down. Not because of the dollar signs, money doesn't forgive trespass, but because Judge Calhoun wrote a line I printed and taped inside a folder titled, "In Case of Future Idiots." An HOA is not a shadow government. It may not override property rights through social pressure, fabricated authority, or bureaucratic sleight of hand. That sentence felt like a post driven deep into hard ground. After that, the dominoes didn't fall. They leapt emergency board meeting. Linda voted out. Rumor says she hurled a latte at a Prius and called everyone visionless. The county suspended a zoning officer who turned out to be her cousin. After emails surfaced about pushing a provisional survey, the local news ran a segment with my drone footage in the background. Credit on screen, I got a manila envelope with a printed deck marked Q4 transition and a red pen. Comment, this didn't age well. I framed it and hung it by my desk. Not as a trophy, as a reminder that arrogance always writes checks. Reality won't cash. I didn't throw a party. I carved a new sign for the gate and hung it with brass bolts so it would feel permanent. Private land, not for sale. Trespassers will be photographed, fined, and laughed at. That evening, a gray Lexus eased up to the keypad. Idled, then turned around. I didn't wave, I didn't gloat. I listened to the wind pick a tune through the grass and the dogs breathing like a metronome. The next morning, a sticky note under the keypad said, "Thanks for fighting back, huh?" We quit the HOA too. You know what I mean, that meant more than the headline. If you're wondering what scared me most, it wasn't the letters or the suits. It was the way people normalize a pretty lie. How a folio and a blazer and a slide deck can make decent folks nod along while someone paints a circle over your life and calls it progress. I'm no saint. I'm a man with 2 dogs and a gate that squeaks. But I learned something that sticks when they bring PowerPoint to take your land. Bring paper, bring questions, bring silence at the right time, and hold the line. And for the record, the shotgun stayed unloaded. The loudest thing I used was a siren, a pair of good dogs, and the word order spoken. Until there wasn't any left to pretend with. So that's my story. Messy, ordinary, and true. I won't say Linda is a monster. I think she believed her ending justified my beginning. The part that stings is how many people would have let it slide because the brochure looked nice. Maybe next time they'll think twice before renaming a creek. A family still drinks from. Maybe not, that's where you come in. Tell me this, is an HOA a civilized tool or a fancy jacket for overreach? Where's the line in the law, in the people, or in the silence of neighbors who don't want trouble? Have you ever watched a PowerPoint try to replace a map? Drop your story, your take, your pushback below. And if this hit a nerve, share it with the one person who needs to hear that a map only matters if it respects the lives living on it.